That we were improving, CAT's position in that contracting process, as well as responding to the changing federal and state and local landscapes. So in the scope that's of services that's in your packages, you'll notice that there's general lobbying services, the things that you would typically expect to see: monitoring, bill tracking, advocacy, and those sorts of things. In addition, under the legislative and executive branch services component, there's a development and implementation of the annual work program, supporting CAT in doing that, recommending and arranging meetings with individual legislators. Again, these are more common practices. But one of the things that we added in that was absent from our current contract is, one, we are seeking diversity in the team's staffing and proposal for these services. We want to see the respondents to the RFP offer a framework for concrete tracking measures that can be used to track success. Currently, we really don't have a way to talk about in an agreed to way what constitutes success of the work that's being performed. So what the actual role is that's played and so forth. Describing expectation of what we think extra efforts are, whether that's helping get media coverage or helping those legislative visits, event participation. There's all kinds of things that your advocacy groups can do outside of just the advocacy during a session proper. That are the kinds of things you would expect to see. We're also looking for 3 to 5 recommendation letters that are specific to the firm's reputation, noting specific accomplishments and strength of relationships. That's an important thing, being able to understand that. An annual review of the lobbyist efforts, and agreed to annual review of their efforts against the agreed to statement of goals and expectations. That would come after their selection, but again, we're making sure on the front end that we're making our business expectations known. And this, I think, is a really important one: identifying all active current clients within the transportation industry and all within the state of Georgia. You can well imagine that when you're a firm like that and you're working for lots of different folks, as most all those firms do, understanding who all everybody's working for and whether or not any of our missions may have something where we could have a conflict of interest is an important thing for us to understand. And if we've got that disclosure, which we don't have now, we can at least have a conversation about it during both the procurement and the negotiation process. So all of these general conditions strengthens CAT's business position in this RFP. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions or comments that you may have. All right. Well, then we'll also move on to the contract award. And you'll note on your agenda it said pending additional data from the broker. We received that additional data yesterday. And of course, as we were all away celebrating Juneteenth, we're getting it to you today. We want to talk about this in committee, but later today we will be giving, Mr. Kennedy and I will be working with Ms. Dumas to revise the agenda item to include the packet of information and have that sent out to all board members. Sort of a synopsis, and I've asked Ms. Cutter as our CFO to be here too, because I think the parts of this that you're going to be particularly interested in are the pieces that have the financial impact, which we had a little bit of an insight into. The property premium increase is entirely market-based, while the increase in the workman's comp premium is due to the 24% increase in driver payroll combined with the increase in the experience modification factor. So in other words, we're having more claims, and that's resulting in a higher premium there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason that our claims have gone up, or is this just the percentage normal?
A part of it is insurance industry increases, and a part of it is workers' comp claims. And one thing that was highlighted was the fact that for operators, and that's particularly who's on workers' comp, there's really no idea to accommodate them. The times that we did try to accommodate, the attending physician indicated that they could not sit for more than 2 hours or stand for more than 4, couldn't live, so we really didn't have a place to accommodate them, and that's one thing that really hurt us on this new proposal. In addition to that, as it related to our fleet, we received 10 new electric buses, paratransit, but we didn't take 10 out of inventory, so it was an additional 8,000 per unit for those vehicles without any really coming out of service. We're still carrying on our insurance.
In the proposal too, I would mention, Director Stone, the broker specifically mentioned the importance of light duty accommodations to help support us in seeking that more frequently, because that can impact not only the claims cost, but also that experience mod calculation, and our experience mod calculation is higher.
And we have to be cautious with that, because whatever the attending physician says, that's what we have to adhere to, or else we would experience a much higher insurance rate. Typically, as I said, with the operators, there are sitting limitations, standing limitations, lifting limitations, no stooping, no bending, and we have pretty much been utilizing a call center to accommodate light duty, but because of the city, that poses problems for us.
All right, but what about the vehicles that we have not taken out of service? Are we going to do that, or what? I mean, this additional fleet.
Operations is looking at that now. They are thinking about refurbing some of these vehicles. So that discussion versus buying new, as it relates to the paratransit vehicles, I have not heard or gotten an update on what the plan is for taking some of the vehicles out of the fleet at this time. Earlier, we were talking about donations, and lately, the conversation has been there is none that we want to donate. So that's an ongoing conversation for final decision.
But these vehicles are not in service.
They're saying they're using them.
I think we're doing an overall fleet assessment now, and
because I hate for us to be paying for something that
absolutely
we're not utilizing. And
but there's a certain amount of surplus that we should have on the yard at any time. But one of the things that we're doing now in anticipation of and working toward our triennial review that's coming up as well is looking at that ratio that we're maintaining, and looking at items like this, and there's a comprehensive review of the fleet going on now to make those kinds of recommendations. And as Ms. Cutter said, on the donation side, we haven't had any vehicles recently that were really sort of fit for donation, and so potentially some of these might fall more in that category.
In addition, with the electric vehicles, remember we have to have the infrastructure to support them.
Right.
And there's a slight delay with Georgia Power getting the electric bus infrastructure in for the paratransit.
For the paratransit.
So we cannot maximize the use of the bus.
I mean, I completely sympathize and understand this insurance issue because we're not alone. County's facing this. I attended a meeting last week in Atlanta. The State Association, ACCG, is experiencing, now for the first time, should we be self-insured? These are questions that historically were never even on the table. So I get that, but I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can, whether it's fleet that's in operation or anything we can do to help with the workman's comp, because I don't see this changing in the immediate future. If anything, it may get worse. You've even got insurance companies now that will not write policies for certain areas in the United States anymore. People can't get insurance on their homes. So, this is becoming an issue. So I get it.
And then I just wanted to mention as well, in the fiscal year 24 budget, we do have some allowances to provide incentives for employees to work safe and to be safe by recognizing them and providing a financial benefit for those who go for a quarter without an accident or an injury. So
The other matter on this insurance. The other matter on this insurance renewal too that we want to point out is the commercial auto rates are up approximately 12.5% from our previous premium. That's consistent with what the overall market is seeing. It's also impacted by the fact that we're getting in newer units and we're replacing the older units. And just like when you get a new car, it costs more to insure it than it did your older car. And so same kind of thing here. So we overall though, both the insurance upticks that we've seen both on workman's comp and on our commercial auto rates, we budgeted for, and they're included in the budget that you've already had in front of you. We did have some, without having the exact numbers, we had some forecasting of this from Sterling Seacrest Pritchard that Ms. Cutter was able to include in the budget process. So this didn't in any way take us off guard or impose an undue burden on our budget.
it was a range of 15 to 30% increase.
I understand. I'm just, the fleet thing got me a little bit, and then I thought, we don't need to be paying for stuff that we're not operating. So, yeah.
One other item I would mention that I know was of interest to the board, and I have asked Sterling Seacrest Pritchard to be sure and explain it in detail when they come and present at the board meeting, is I know that in some previous meetings, there have been conversations, discussions with the board regarding the public officials' liability insurance currently held by Chubb, that in terms that you wanted to have more ability to control the direction of those claims and concerns around when settlements were being engaged versus continuing to advance a particular matter legally. And so we had indicated that to Sterling Seacrest Pritchard last year, that the board had an interest in understanding, having more control over that, and that was included this time in Chubb's proposal. So they will talk about that during their presentation to the board as well. So I just wanted you to know that we heard you on that matter, and thank you, Ms. Dumas, that we heard you on that matter, and that we made sure that it was incorporated into the proposal this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Nothing from the Service Delivery Operational Committee. In the Finance Services Audit and Compliance Committee, of course, you're going to see the FY24 proposed budget adoption and budget calendar, the 3-year contract award for Patrick's uniforms, the contract award to Williams Communication for radio system installs on the para vehicles, and then the contract award to Transit Solutions for camera system installs for the para vehicles. So radios and cameras on all those new para vehicles. Under the Planning and Infrastructure Development Committee, while we have moved the Master Transit Plan to the July board meeting for adoption, You will see, and that's under the proposed board presentations, you will have a presentation of the actual plan document, not the deck of recommendations that you've received. It's still based entirely consistent with what you've seen as recommendations, but it will be the more detailed actual report. Under proposed board presentations, we'll have the second reading and public hearing for that budget that we just mentioned. The future of transit briefing, we are extremely excited that Paul Skatelis, who is the APTA president and CEO, will be joining us this month. And he'll give you all a brief presentation on, from his view, the national view, the future of transit. There will be the property and casualty insurance presentation, as we've just been discussing, from Sterling Seacrest Pritchard, our broker, and then Nelson Nygaard, the lead consultant for the Master Transit Plan, will be presenting it as well. With that, Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you for old and new business.
Right, thank you. Do we have any old or new business? Would like everyone to know that we are planning that special call meeting Friday. But we'll be getting you out the information to check with every board member to see if you're available.
We have a commission meeting on Friday, so bear that in mind in the morning.
All right. All right. Do we have any more questions or comments for today's meeting? All right, before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everybody participating in this weekend's festivities, Juneteenth, and happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Our next meeting will be June 27th, 2023. We look forward to seeing you all there. At this time, I'd like to adjourn this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
My son gave him that wagon.
Don't forget the dinner on the 26th, too, please.
It's called the Twin Bin. See it?
Oh, my gosh.
It's Radio Flyer will customize, yeah, will customize your wagon for you.
I want to talk to you about a matter I briefed the chairman on this morning, because it's regarding hovercraft.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's your pen.
Why don't you keep it? It's a cat pen.
Oh, I'll keep it in this pocket, but I switched pockets